Good morning, everybody. First thing I'd like to say about invisible letters, invisible languages is what is invisible supposed to mean? And it's not a word that conveys all the meanings that I'd like to say. The Japanese also, mienai. It's a result. And the way we talk about this, letters, languages, the way we talk about anything, the words have meaning. If we use active or passive voice or different transitive, intransitive verbs, it changes the way we mean. So invisible could be unable to be seen, unseeable, hidden, buried, covered, concealed. There are different ways we can think about this, and how we talk about that can tell us more about what's behind that. What's the motivation? Is there an agent, someone or something responsible for this end result? Like if I say the glass broke, then that doesn't tell us much. The glass, how did it break? Did somebody break it? If I say I broke it, then we know I'm the agent. I'm responsible, but was it an accident, or did I deliberately do this? Did I smash the glass? Did I throw it? So anything we're talking about that has meaning. Like in the news recently, a truck ran into people. It was driven into people in the US, and a truck wasn't responsible. There was somebody behind that. Somebody did that. They had a motivation. So when we talk about letters and language and not being able to see them, what's the motivation behind that? Where did that come from? And because I don't want to run out of time, I'd like to thank some people first. These people are just some of the people on the list. I'm sure I've missed a lot of people, but a lot of people here are responsible for great work in Unicode, encoding, script research, computer implementation software. And without these people, I wouldn't be able to show you any of this that I'm looking at right now. Also, I follow a lot of history and script-related resources. These are some recommended ones that I was looking at while thinking about all this. Also some books that I was reading while I was preparing this talk, and I quote a couple of these in the talk. So, as I was saying, with recognizing an agent or someone responsible for an outcome, regarding scripts and languages, I hate to read a quote to you and you see it, but this is pretty important. In many cases, these are targeted extinctions resulting from political persecution of minority cultures, economic pressure to assimilate to majority language education, or in some cases, genocidal violence. These words, I think, are chosen very well. This really tells us why a language or a writing system or a culture is gone, or there's an agent, there's somebody pushing this aside, somebody who doesn't want this around. And ever since the invention of writing, there's been a divide between those who can write or are allowed to, those who are not allowed to or don't know how. And these days, there's a bigger divide, the digital divide, which comes about from computers not being able to represent many of the scripts, many of the writing systems, hundreds of writing systems that are not represented in computing. If there's not in, if there's no fonts or keyboards available for a particular writing system, then how can somebody from that particular culture use computers, or how do they work with this digital world? If they can't use their own writing system, which one do they use? Do they use a different writing system, a different language, a majority language? And if so, is this just an inconvenience, or is this part of a bigger problem? Like, do we all need to assimilate? Do we all need to speak the same language, use the same writing system? Is that the natural order of things? I don't think so. I don't believe that, and what I'm interested in is the implications of this world ever-changing digital world where digital devices are more and more common and in many cases required. So who is creating this technology? Who's creating the bias implicit in the technology? We're creating fonts and encodings and a way to represent language in computing, but who are we leaving out? Who are we leaving behind? And is this intentional, or just it's too hard, or we don't know? Or is it economic? That's another big one. Well, let's look at a few things. So these are the letters that some of us here use every day. But out beyond these letters is a whole world of writing systems. Many thousands and thousands of letters, hundreds and hundreds of writing systems. Many of these that you see here are not represented well in computing. You can't use them on every device. You can't just buy a computer, a laptop, a cell phone, and these are there. And out beyond this, even further, we have a whole other world of unencoded scripts, not yet ready. A whole list of 146, I think, right here. These are not yet encoded, and they might be encoded someday, but they might not be. Depends on how things go. And this is just one list. This isn't everything in the universe. So there's a lot out there that's not yet represented, not yet ready to go. But today I'd like to just look at a few briefly and show you the current status of these. One is Baiksuki. This is a Indian script, Indic script from South India mostly, and it's actually found a lot of different places. And let's see, oh, here we are. India, sorry, North India, Tibet, Nepal. There's various encoding or manuscripts found all over the place. This was encoded just a few years ago in Unicode, and the Noto font is now installed on Android, but there's only third-party keyboards, so it's not something that you can easily work with. But it's a historic script, so it's not such a huge deal. But still, it's important to have these encoded. Here's the Noto font. This is what it looks like from a manuscript. Another one, Nandinagari. Another historical script related to Devanagari, which is, as many of you know, the main script for Hindi and also used in other various languages. This was encoded this year, just months ago. And so there's no fonts installed by default. There are no keyboards yet. There's no way to use this yet. But already 10 years ago, people have been working on OCR recognition for manuscript. There are a lot of resources, and people want to be able to study the script and keep researching it. But without an encoding, that makes it more difficult. Another example. Okay, here's the fun stuff that I'm more into is Chochmah. This is a minority language. It's the name of the minority people, the language, the script, Chochmah. Some of you people are familiar with it because of Bivudi Chochmah, who is a proponent and pushing hard to get this going in computers. He wants to have his language out there in the world. This was encoded in 2012, already 7 years ago, and there was no font available as a system font until just this last year or so. And just last month, as I was preparing this, Gboard keyboard became available on Android, and immediately Bivudi started posting tutorials, how to install it, how to use it, telling people, get this keyboard, get the font, get everything ready, like upgrade to Android 9 if you're on Android. And I was chatting with him just the other day, and I said, oh, we're going to fix a couple things in the font because it's missing a few things. And this was his response. Okay, thanks. We're waiting to see this great news from your end. Our whole Chochmah community people are very happy to get our language in the world. Now we can express our thoughts over the globe where our community people reside. I left it as he wrote it. His English is much better than my Chochmah, so it's great chatting with him about this. And you see on the right here, that's from Facebook. His Twitter is Facebook. A few years ago, it was all using Bengali script, which is the majority script in that area. And now, slowly, over the years, we've seen the posts, the comments in posts start to use more and more Chochmah script. And that took some time. So 7 years since encoding, but we're finally starting to get somewhere. Another one in a similar situation is Noir. This one, we actually have some Noir people here. We have Ananda from Nepal, who I'm very happy to have join us this year. He will also, later today, Ananda and Sunita will do Ranjana, another script from Nepal, a Ranjana demo writing in that script. And also Sunday, we'll have a Ranjana calligraphy workshop. So if anybody's interested in that, we're doing that Sunday morning. It didn't work out to get it in the main program here, so we have a separate space in Nakameguro, which is a nice area. We're going to do that Sunday morning, so if anybody's interested, then talk to us later. So Newa, another script which was encoded in 2016, only 3 years ago. Now, finally, in Android 9, there's a font installed by default, and no keyboards yet. So writing is somewhat difficult, but people have third-party keyboards and websites where you can convert and then copy-paste, which is one way to go. So it's moving along, it's getting somewhere, but there's still more to do. Some more manuscript examples of this beautiful script. This is what Ananda posted just a few weeks ago on Facebook and Twitter. He asked, is Nepalipi, the Newa text, visible to you? And here on the left we have 67% say, no, I can't see it, which means either they have an older device, they don't have Android 9, they have Android 8 or 7 or 6, or they have something older. Hardware, software is old, so they're not able to see it. In some cases, you can't install a font on a device that you're using. In others, if you can, then it's possible. There's a Noto font available. Ananda and his group has also produced another font, which you can download. But still, 67% didn't see it. That's a lot of people who can't see the script. But we're getting somewhere. At least we have something. We have a font. We can produce text like this. So it's a start. Another one, also in a similar situation, is Charada. Also Unicode 9. So also 3 years ago, Noto font is on Android 9, but still not quite there yet. A lot of problems with the font. I've been talking with a guy, Karan, who is a Kashmiri, and working on this font, working to fix the issues with the font. And this is from his group on the right, handwritten. So they handwrite their holiday card because the fonts aren't quite ready yet. And just the other day, he also posted, finally set up a keyboard by himself, was able to write in Charada script. And he says here, there's a lot of modifications required in the font, but it's really great to have it here. At least I could tweet something in Charada. And on the right there, you see a device which has the font installed, so Android 9, or if you install it on your iOS or your desktop or laptop. But on the left, that's what you get if the font's not installed. So here's an example of it, the Noto font, which if you don't know the script, might look decent, but if you know it, there's some issues. So it's something we need to fix. One more, which is out of order. I should have put this first. But this is Granta, another very old script, very complicated script. This is also South India, but this was Unicode 7. It's not in use as a daily script necessarily, but for certain people, certain religious people, it's used for Sanskrit, and there's a long history of both manuscript and written. There's also metal fonts made, but in computing, nothing really ready to go until this one, the Noto font. Here you can see the metal type, which little sketchy in some places, but it was decent for a time. And I'm running out of time, so what I'd like to look at here is what are the implications of not having any of these scripts? And what are the technical requirements? First of all, if a writing system doesn't have an orthography, or if a language doesn't have an orthography, a writing system, a way to write it, an agreed upon way of writing it, then we can't do the encoding in Unicode or other encodings, but these days mostly we're talking about Unicode. And then we need the implementation. We need shaping, fonts, keyboards, the way to lay out the text. And I completely lost what I was thinking here. But why should we care about this is my main point here. Looking at the history of writing and the history of the world, really, the more we find, the more letters we discover, the more we make accessible, the more we can look at these, then the more we can understand ourselves, the more we can understand humans, history, the way things have moved. We can understand how languages and cultures and writing systems have moved across time and space, migration patterns, and food pattern networks. The Silk Road here at the end of the 19th century, when Tocharian was discovered, that really changed the way we looked at things, in linguistics especially. These days, we're probably not going to find anything quite like that, but we don't know. There's still so much out there to look for, so much out there to discover. This is another one, not encoded, being worked on, but another ancient script. This has whole conferences, whole books. University courses are taught about this script, but still not encoded. There's still so much to learn from this. I thought this was a good quote to point out what I mean here. The efforts humans have invested in exploring and attempting to decipher the world around them have always far exceeded those needed for mere survival. It seems that we are an endlessly curious species, some of us even compulsively so. I think in this room, that's definitely true. Compulsively so. Also the Japanese, ikisugi na hito moimasu. That's a lot of us. We're looking at the details. We're going deep into this. And what I'd like to ask all of you as type designers, students of type, working with typography, that's why we're here. We're at ATypI. We're interested in these things. But there's a whole world of writing out there to keep looking at. So many beautiful letters. And they're not just nice pictures. These are parts of our history, parts of our culture. So much more to learn from all of these, and so many more to include in computing. This one everybody loves. This is a Noir. A little bit sad because we don't have all these encoded yet. So please, everybody, join me in encoding more, making more fonts, making things more visible. And that's my time. Thank you.